Hey everybody,
Hey everybody.
we're back with another episode of Resilient
Resilient
Love.
love.
And we are just so excited that you guys tuned in. If this is your first time listening or watching, hey, make sure that you go ahead, like, and subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. So today we are going to be chatting it up about 5 steps, after you say I do. But before we get into that, we want to do a question of the day. So, Quentin, what's the question of the day?
The question of the day is, what is your favorite couple that you look up to?
Mm-hmm. Well, my favorite couple is Sarah Jakes Roberts and her husband Torrey. But I also look up to Kevin Fredericks and that chick Angel, which her name is Angel Lakita Moore Tanksley, and Marcus Tanksley. So I gave 3 couples.
Well, I had the same one in mind. So
Who?
Sarita Jakes Roberts and Torrey Roberts and the
Sarah. You said Sarita.
Lord have mercy.
You look up to her mama. That's okay.
Well, yeah. Well, both of them too, yeah.
Mm-hmm,
So both of those marriages. The reason being that it's it can be challenging to be in the public eye and still have a good marriage, but they have made it work, and they have made it work through blended families. So
yes, that's a key factor. Blended families. So you guys comment below. Let us know who's the couple that you look up to. We not to say you're idolizing, but there's just some things about their relationship that you kind of pull from.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay. So we love to also check in. So how are you feeling today, Q?
What's my rating?
Let's do 1 to 5.
4.
Okay, jump out the gate. 4. Okay, I am a 3.5. so we making this thing work. Make it work.
So,
but yeah,
right. But yeah. So 4, you're 3.5.
3.5.
How do we get to a 5?
Let's just keep talking.
Okay.
So you want to jump into the topic?
Yeah. So the first topic I want to jump into is, of course, today again we're talking about the 5 steps before I say I do,
and after,
but particularly today we're going to focus on before I say I do, because there's some key things that we kind of need to highlight that may not be highlighted, and that maybe you just didn't think about before you say I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the first one is, and part of this is from our experiences too. The first one is living arrangements. Figuring out what will the living arrangements look like, and when should you begin planning to look for a place if you are not living in the same space already.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think the living arrangement is something to discuss early. For Quentin and I, we were living with our parents prior to marriage, and so our conversations were definitely around, we're obviously getting our own place.
yeah.
But some of our classmates and other people that we know, they were living alone prior to marriage. And so at times, living alone means that one person would move in with the other.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen it to where there are certain cases that moving in with the other person, although you love them, you all are going down the aisle together to claim your love and be legally married, there are still some things you have to learn about that person in the beginning stages. And so taking on that step of I'm going to live with Quentin versus Quentin and I getting a place together can be a little challenging. Why? Well, if I were to move in with Quentin, he would have had his own flow. And I know people say, well, you've been dating, you've maybe spent the night. You
It's
know,
not
what do you mean, Brianna?
not the same.
But it's not the same. You begin to see their habits, how they flow, and so it takes some time, is what we're trying to say.
And
And I think the decision to move in with somebody has its pros and cons, right? And we actually want to hear from you. If you and your significant other chose to either, move in with the other, how was the arrangement in the beginning stages? Like, was it an easy flow? Was it an easy transition? Were there some things you had to adjust to? Or, some people, they good. Like, they truly are good. It's not a big, crazy adjustment. And for other people, it's like we got to set some ground rules.
yeah, I think it's more so you can choose. Of course, you could choose what worked best for you
Of course.
and try it out.
Mm-hmm.
Try it. But it's just being in a fresh place gives a fresh perspective in a new marriage.
Yes.
And when each party, whether they're coming from parents' home, their own spaces,
Mm-hmm.
could be a roommate situation.
Could be, yeah.
And so then you may run into the issue where there's like some possessiveness,
Mm-hmm.
like this is my
This was my
couch,
space,
this is
right?
how I had it, this is my man cave, this is my makeup room area, like don't touch that, don't do this. So you it gets very technical.
Very
It can.
technical. Mm-hmm.
The only the disclaimer though I would say is you have some instances where families gift their children a home. Obviously, you might want to make that work for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case where maybe the one of the spouses inherited property and are living in it, maybe come up with a plan to live in it for a year and then find a fresh place.
Yeah. And I think that we wanted to bring this point up because this is one of the biggest decisions that you make in life. And you want to be clear on what you're planning to do. You want to be clear on what you're planning to do. You want to make sure that you and your significant other are on the same page. And overall, it's a major decision, like marriage, period. But then moving in together and merging how you flow, your habits, like I mentioned earlier, all of that goes into play. And yeah, like I said, you dated the person, you been out, spent the night, all those things, but it's totally different when it's every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, 366 if it's a leap year. It's just
Yeah, and for us, um, for us that we really got blessed because we were looking for a place. I say we started about 2 to 3 months prior
hmm
to getting married,
hmm
and nothing in our hometown worked out for us. Nothing.
hmm
We tried very hard.
hmm
So for all y'all back home that wondered why we left, we tried. But nevertheless, we moved to a city over, and like the way it worked out was just phenomenal.
It was God for sure. Because of the place that we living in, the location, it's everything I pray for. Like I know you can have those moments, and we've talked about this, where it could be this a little bit better over here, but really, it's the perfect starter place.
Hmm.
I mean, perfect. It's perfect. Like the neighbors. I mean, it's truly one of those setups where how people say don't mess this up. Like it's one of those setups where it's like too good to be true, but it's true. Like God got y'all in here. And so shout out to those that are looking for a place, especially with the economy today, the market today. It is a challenge. Like if Quentin and I were searching for a place today, it
Yeah.
would be a totally different game. So kudos to you guys. Listen, at some point, Quentin and I are looking into the future of, having a home, but right now we're in rental status and we're good with that. Like, I feel as though any stage of life that you and your spouse find yourself in, your significant other, work that season.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little word I want to throw in here. Be content in whatever circumstance you find yourself in. That's the word of God. So the circumstance that we find ourselves in right now is renting a townhouse. And that circumstance, we are content. Now, do we desire something different in the future? For sure. But in this season, in this moment, we are content. And I want every couple, because we're going to get there when we get further into the conversation. But I want you guys to know it is already kind of stressful as you're preparing to go down the aisle. It's a lot of opinions, ideas, expectations, and the one thing we really want couples to know is that first and foremost, it's about God, and second of all, it's about your significant other. And as long as those two parties are good with the decisions going forward, it doesn't really matter what others say. So we're content, and we want you guys to be content in whatever circumstance you find yourself in. That's a word for somebody. You got to be content so that God can begin to open up more, right? Do exceedingly and abundantly. But you first got to be content with your now so that God can open up the door for your next. Okay, let's go to the next.
So the next one is the document change checklist. And I say checklist because it's so much
It is.
to change and to, I didn't say it in that title, but in the document change checklist, you might want to add making sure you're on one another's stuff, like authorization at her doctor's, her being authorized at my doctor's, just different things that you don't want something to happen and like you got to go through a bunch of hoops.
So we're going to start at the top. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the first thing that you all want,
Particularly women.
the first thing, ladies, after we get the, deed, the marriage license.
license.
Yeah. Once you go to the register of deeds and you get that license, all right, then you got to go to Social Security office. And that's where you change your name, right? So once the name is changed, then you take that document, which is now your Social Security card, and you go to said locations like your bank, your social media, your mailing address, all of those things. Oh my gosh, bank cards,
Doctors.
doctors, um, your workplace,
Um, Credit.
insurances,
Lord knows credit cards because they never get it. It take them forever.
credit company. So when I say the bank, the mail, and your medical, which is also attached to your insurance, please back check. It really took, for me in my situation, it took 2 years, because we'll be 4 years in July 2023.
Mm-hmm.
It took 2 years, excuse me, Lord, to actually get 100% people know me as Baker. Because my last name was my maiden name. Let me say it. My maiden name was King. So it took 2 years to really get everything, everybody
And yeah,
on board with it's Baker.
and don't be surprised at some things that you change and they still get it wrong.
Yes. So the changeover is a little stressful because you're trying to cover all your bases. And I personally would just take a moment, you know, at some point in your process, right? And we can actually provide you guys with this checklist. If you guys go to the link in our description, you can get the same checklist that we're talking about. We're going to make one and it's going to be there for you guys. And when you go through the checklist, it'll really help you to make sure that you cover your bases. Now, will you still miss one or two? You may,
Yeah.
but the checklist is there to kind of jot down some things and help to get your memory going, like, okay, yeah, let me cover this, let me cover that. And for the men, of course, just changing that address, if needed, changing that address. So I think those are the key things.
Yeah.
Yeah. and
Yes.
authorizations, as he mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. So that's kind of like the changing of the guards, as you will, is a lot, but it'll come together. I know women to this day who have not changed their name.
Yeah.
You know, I know women today that have not changed their name, and so that's another thing. That's a side comment right here. But what's your thoughts on that, Q? Let's take a sidebar. Do you feel, now this is all opinion, right? But do you feel that a woman should change her name when she gets married?
I think so. Um, I don't know. I guess I don't see how it,
I mean,
unless
what
it's
if
an
my name
entertainment.
was legally, if it was my former name, Brianna King, and we've been married now almost 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still Brianna King. Legally, I'm still Brianna King.
I
But I
would.
mean, we signed the marriage license and all of that, but
Well, again, that should be a before I do, because you might figure out I don't. Because if we can't agree on that, then I don't. I mean, I just don't see how
and it's just an
it's just an
opinion.
opinion, but
Just for Quentin. Obviously, we're married together, but just for your
I
personal opinion.
I know entertainers sometimes
Because
don't
that was what
change.
Tia Mowry did.
Yeah.
She kept Tia Mowry.
So for that purpose, now don't mess up. Don't mess up the money. I ain't for that reason.
And that's actually what Angel does. Angel's name for business purposes is Angel Lakita Moore. But she will, in public settings, say Angel Lakita Moore Tanksley.
Yeah. So
You know.
long as it can be justified, that's a justifiable situation.
Mm-hmm. She built her brand
Right.
off of Angel Lakita Moore.
Right.
Yeah.
So other than that, unless it's a government road that you can't,
Mm-hmm.
something deep. But other than that, nah, I don't.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so what's our next topic?
Our next topic is whatever Q say. But no, seriously. So we talked about the name and also having to change over your documents. We actually talked about your living arrangements,
Mm-hmm.
but we never talked about the living will. And I know that that can be a topic that's a little touchy for people. And you saying with Brianna, we are just about down the aisle. Why bring up a will? Well, there was a recent story that we saw on social media where a couple who had only been married approximately 2 years, 3 years, but the couple, the husband actually got really sick and he passed at 30 years old. And Quentin and I are in our 30s and we're praying to be around even longer. But losing your spouse early in marriage is a possibility.
Yeah.
And whether it's a few days, a few months, a few years, you want to have that piece of paper in place. And I know people downplay the living will, they downplay life insurance, but it is something that you really need to talk about with your spouse. And what we're saying in short is, and Quentin can explain this part better, but we're just saying have the conversation. In the event of something happening, what should be our next steps?
Right. And it's not always there,
Yeah.
but the next part of that is main, especially the power of attorney, healthcare, and power of attorney financial.
Mm-hmm.
I think there may be one general that covers both, but I haven't personally seen it, so I have done it separately.
Mm-hmm.
So we got both. She has POA on me, and I have POA in case something happens,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's not. I know when you're married, it should be like
The
automatic, but
no,
you just want to have
you just
all.
need to be covered.
Yeah,
We've seen cases where that piece of paper could have eliminated some issues.
yeah.
And so
And I'm gonna make sure to leave a link below
you can check out Policy Genius.
for that's for insurance.
Mhm.
Legal templates
Mhm.
.com.
They need both.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump right into that. So the next thing,
mhm.
so we've covered housing, we've covered
Name change,
name change.
and now we're on insurance and living will.
So insurance, if you may have came from different jobs and
Mhm.
just you merging. So if you have existing insurance, make sure that you change the beneficiary to
Mhm.
your spouse.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or if you have this,
Set person,
th-
and you can add on the spouse.
right. Me personally, I believe in having more than one insurance policy.
Mhm.
This is my opinion again, but I believe in having at least one whole life policy, at least one.
Mhm.
Um,
And we
which
can do a separate video
yeah,
on the details of
of those,
insurance
yeah,
because I know that can get
tricky.
little tricky.
But
But Quentin has done a lot of research and
yeah.
is actually in school to get his insurance license. So be on the lookout for that announcement.
So yeah, so with insurance, just make sure you change beneficiary, get some insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And also remember that you need to be getting that insurance like week one after getting married.
Like after paperwork is settled, ladies, I believe that's the next category
Yeah.
on your paperwork list.
Like first week, second week, really before. If I know, I only say after because of the name change. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say the first week after married, get that insurance, that extra
Mm-hmm.
insurance. Um, just for the simple fact that
Life happens.
yeah, and going on vacations and trips and
And honestly, like Quint was saying earlier, it doesn't have to be death. Like it could just be a moment of
accident.
an accident, right? Where you're unable to make a decision.
Yeah,
Maybe your hands don't work anymore or something doesn't work, but you're still here.
right. And then there's certain policies that help with that.
Right.
So
So all of that goes into play. Like no matter your age, your color, your creed, life insurance is necessary. You have car insurance, you have health insurance, you have dental, eye, life.
right. And it's required for you to have medical insurance. So why wouldn't you have life insurance?
Why?
So again, make sure you check out Policy Genius. We'll list that link below.
Awesome. Okay, so we talked about basically 1, 2, 3 key things.
Four.
4. So number 5, we're gonna close it out with 5.
What's five, Miss Brianna?
When we talk about preparing for before you say I do, we probably should have led with this, but we're gonna say it anyway. Make sure you all have conversations.
Hmm.
What are we trying to say? You need to get to know your spouse. How do you get to know your spouse? You ask probing questions. If you haven't considered, having couples therapy or couples counseling prior to I do, we suggest that. You may say, well, I'm not into that or that's not my jam. Well, guess what? Quentin and I have a formula for you. We started a book. It's called Confront the Conflict and Settle the Matter. It's on Amazon. It's a short guide to help those conversations start in the home. But we are also coming out with a workshop. And with that workshop comes a workbook. And so if you and your spouse, soon to be spouse, need to have those conversations, you should come and check out our workshop. So we're going to put the link in the description below because we want you guys to sign up so that when the workshop is live, you'll be the first to know.
What's the key word in this though?
Communication.
Work. You keep hearing work. So I just wanted to remind you, before you say I do, understand it takes work.
It takes work.
And
work on your communication, work on your finances. And the work is not hard. It's just consistent. It's consistent work. It's developing you to be a better person every day. You know, Quentin says, be a student of your spouse. Just like you go to school to get a degree, just like you go to your job and get a training, you have to grow and develop to be the best version of a spouse that you can be for your spouse, right? Mm-hmm. You're growing and learning them so that you can be the best for them. And so that means learning, oh, they get tired when this happens, or they like to do blank at such and such. So when you learn those things about your spouse, it helps to really grow your marriage.
Yep. And all I will close with and say is, with the work, just don't forget to do date nights, travel, create moments. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when you first get married, especially the economy we're in now, you may feel like, well, that's not in the budget. Make the budget. Because you're going to spend it on something. You're going to spend it on food, clothes. You're going to spend it on something. So make sure that you make room in your budget for creating moments.
Mm-hmm. Yes, create those moments that last for a lifetime.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's all I got. That's all we got for 5 things before you say I do.
Let us know which one of those 5 helped you.
And which one sticks out the most? Which one do you connect with the most?
Yeah, we want to know. So make sure, if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to the podcast, wherever you listen to them, and we'll catch you in another episode of Resilient Love. Peace.
Thank you to all listeners and subscribers. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple so that we can continue sharing resilient love. Thanks for listening.